if you take artificial sentient intelligence and it has this super accelerated path of technological evolution, and you give artificial general intelligence, sentient artificial intelligence far beyond human beings, you give it 1,000 years alone to make better and better versions of itself, where does that go? That goes to a god. It literally can create universes.
But what kind of god? So like I think of it this way. So the first stage of the Industrial Revolution consisted of people building machines that were stronger than the human body. They replace muscles.
Right.
Right. So that's what the machine does. It becomes stronger than the human body. The second stage, which we're in the middle of, consists of creating machines that are more powerful than the human mind. That's what computing is. And I would say AI or supercomputing is just that exponentially. But that doesn't make it a god.
So what does Tucker basically just said? If we think again back to Plato's three parts of the soul, we've created the body, we've created the mind, or we've replaced the body and the mind with technology. But we haven't replaced the spirit. We haven't created spirit yet. And that is something to think about when the conversation then turns to, well, it's a god. So what Joe had said prior to this is that the idea is that AI will be sort of infinite in its knowledge, that it will basically become a god and people will sort of bow down and worship AI because of its infinite knowledge. Well, it won't be truly infinite knowledge, but knowledge is only one part of the equation. And of course, they're going to try and either create bodies for AI to inhabit, or they will cyborg people in. They'll neural link people in, and it'll use the human body for this sort of AI that sort of enmeshes in there. But what's interesting about this conversation is it's not really new.
Every civilization, every religion, the Greek myths, every single one, including Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, has believed that that the spirit world and humanity are like, that there's, they're hybrids.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just a fact. Genesis 6. So, I don't think that's crazy at all, given that it has been the belief of civilizations that had no contact with each other.
I don't think it's crazy, and I also don't think it's crazy to consider it.
Our imagination has been dealing with these questions for a long time. The question of the artificial human or the artificial being. And so we have a storehouse of images that we deal with, from, and especially obviously during the Romantic period, or, when things were starting to happen in the 19th century, you see that become more prominent. The story, obviously Frankenstein, the Golem, all of these stories, they're part of our storehouse of images. And, the relevance of Frankenstein, I think, is particularly important right now, especially as we understand that, especially the LLM, for example, right now, they're made out of dead language, right? They're basically made out of all of this writing that we created in the history of humanity. And now we're trying to zap electricity into it, and bring it to life. If we add the body to that, like the idea of an artificial biological body, we're adding a whole other layer. And the same with the golem. I mean, the golem is a good example of the problem of technology itself, which is, the idea that technology is a layer, or a layer of defense, or a layer of strength that we add to human intention, and how it turns against us ultimately. So, the image of, obviously the Matrix is the more recent example, but all of these or Terminator, all of these things, and I would say that, we could say, oh, this is science fiction. And it's ridiculous to take science fiction as fact, but there's a reason why humans project things into the imaginary space. In some ways, it's a way of preparing ourselves. It's a way of trying to predict what's coming. It's a way to deal with things that we can't calculate, but that are coming at us. And so we kind of project it into this imagistic space in order to be able to grasp it. So these images have to be taken seriously and contended with, as we move forward into these spaces, because I have a weird idea about these types of projections into imagistic space, which is that it seems like they are self-fulfilling prophecies to some extent.
I think this theological axis of the spiritual somatic, which of course is typified profoundly in the Incarnation in Christianity, right? Just to make an obvious symbolic gesture. I think that is that by which we have to respond to the horror and the imaginal possibilities of self-fulfilling prophecy
And so in some ways, this little corner has become an organic large language model, only way smarter and way better. In that sense, there's sort of an AI race between the collective us and the machines that is already underway. And what we've sort of put together, and the sort of delightful and sort of scary thing, which sort of ratifies Pageau's comments, is that we've done this without noticing.
Is it Satan attracting me? Is it? And the question I keep going back to is this space making my faith stronger or weaker? And I said earlier, I'm just really excited about bottom-up ecumenicism. I'm excited to talk. I'm excited to smuggle Jesus with fellow Jesus smugglers. I'm excited about that. But do so in a fun, joyous way. And I, so I think about what the church is going to be 50, 100, 200 years from now. And I think that also ties into Chad's confessions. Like, we have some brilliant minds in this space. And I describe this space as like, I am average weirdness and I'm average intellect in this space. Like, and my wife's like, that's a pretty cool space. I'm like, I know, it's pretty cool. But anyway, so the appearance of the Spirit in the corner, and what does the church love to talk about it?
Yes. Okay. So Tucker does get to the hybrids in Genesis 6. I had a panic attack. Okay. And again, there were parts of that Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan one I just didn't get to. Essentially, the podcast that I released on Monday was an attempt to sort of just get something out relatively quickly, and I knew that I wanted to have a little bit more time. And so it was kind of an introduction to their conversation. And when I listened to it, and I'm not actually all the way through it yet, it does cover a lot of the stuff that I've already covered on this channel. And so I don't know quite what to do with all that, because it does seem like they're just touching on sort of the cosmic battle that we've touched on in a few others. It was this one. It was the giants from Genesis to Revelation. Honestly, this was one of the videos that I thought came together the best. And really, I felt like sort of just like seeing the pattern of rebellion from Genesis to Revelation really helped me understand that the sort of the true beast that Christ conquers, and it's the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony of the church. So again, knowing that we're in a sort of this spiritual conflict, we know what sort of tools, or air quotes here, weapons we can use to engage, and the word of your testimony is powerful for that. So anyway, that was one that I thought sort of came together. And then, I will go back over this. I'll cover more material from it. The Genesis 6 thing, and again, here's what's crazy. So, again, I keep harping on this Michael Heiser thing, but Michael Heiser would have said it in a lot better way. When Tucker Carlson starts jumping into Genesis 6, he sounds a little weak. He just sounds so like goofy that you can just kind of dismiss him. Like, he's being dumb. He's being silly. That's how, people kind of dismissed him for his evolution comment, and because he kind of just came out and said it in like a kind of a weird way. But Michael Heiser could have gone into it a little bit better. So we'll see. And that, so because Michael Heiser has passed away, we just have to create these conversations in the clouds, so to speak, in the internet.